Good morning, everybody. My name is Glenn Hall. I am a senior prevention specialist for FCD Prevention Works. And I'm going to do a presentation this morning or evening, afternoon, wherever it might be for you at this point, because it is a recording. I want to say hello to Norwich students. I understand that this is a presentation for the Norwich students. And so what I'll do is I will take about 30 minutes and I will present to you some information on prevention education. And hopefully it will go smooth. I hope that you guys are all in good health, and all you really have to do is just kind of pay attention. First off, I want to say that I am a specialist for FCD Prevention Works. I have been for many years now. In fact, in a moment, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. But I do want to share with you the bulk of this presentation, maybe half of it anyway, will be on vaping. We're gonna zoom in on vaping, specifically, what this drug has, where's it come from, how did it seep into our society, and as I speak to you about that, I'm gonna share with you my my own personal struggle with drug addiction. I am a recovering addict. I have been for many years now. I will share my story with you in a moment. But before I do all that, just let me tell you a little bit about the FCD program. FCD Prevention Works is a prevention organization based out of Massachusetts. We are a global nonprofit organization. We've been around for many, many years. In fact, we've been doing this work for 43 years in over 70 foreign countries. Interestingly enough, we started this organization many, many years ago with just one guy. This individual was a brilliant guy. I mean, he was a Harvard graduate. He was highly educated, very, very successful, but he had a problem in his life, and his problem was he developed alcoholism. He couldn't stop drinking alcohol. And it got so bad that one day his wife had to give him an ultimatum and said, listen, Don, his name was Don Cutler, said, Don, if you really should try to get some help. And that's what Don did. He went to rehab. And by the way, guys, he went to rehab in the United States when we didn't have a lot of rehabs around. And when he went to rehab, he addressed his issue with his alcohol drinking, and he turned his life around. And he decided to go out in the world and try to help young people understand how risky and how dangerous it is to use chemicals, especially when your brain is not fully developed, especially when you're in your adolescent years. And anyway, the way the story went, Don came out of rehab and he went into a school by himself, and he sat down on the end of a desk in a classroom and he shared his story. He shared his story and his struggle with alcoholism to a lot of young people, and it made such an impact that he decided to start this program called Freedom from Chemical Dependency, FCD. I want to say to you guys, I'm personally very fortunate. And when I say that, Don Cutler, 25 years ago, before he passed away, he actually hired me. So I've actually been with this company now for 25 years. It's been an amazing journey for me. As you can see on the screen, there's a lot of folks up there. Almost all of those guys up there in that shot right there happen to be in long-term healthy recovery. Dawn said anybody that works for FCD should be in long-term healthy recovery. And that's what I am. I'm in long-term healthy recovery. When I tell you I haven't used chemicals for 27 years, for me, that's a miracle. I just celebrated actually my 27-year anniversary about a little over a month ago, and it was an amazing, amazing journey for me. And today, I want to kind of tell you a little bit about how drugs really entered my life and how they messed me up, and how I actually paid a hefty, hefty price for using drugs at such a young age. In fact, I'm going to get right into my story right now and tell you a little bit about how drugs entered my life, how they messed up my life, and then how I turned my life around. the first thing I want to say is I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Cambridge, being very close to Boston, it's got that river, man, the Charles River that separates us. But it was a fun place for a kid like myself to grow up. At the age of 13, I tried my first drug. Now, just so you guys understand, I got addicted to 5 different drugs, and I didn't get addicted by myself. I have a big family. Addiction runs in my family. It may run in some of your families. We're not going to talk too much about genetic predisposition today, but genetic predisposition just basically means if it's in your family, you're in a higher risk category to get addicted yourself. And that was my case. I had it in my family. And what happened was I tried a drug at 13, and it just so happened to be a drug that's pretty popular today. And that drug is marijuana. And as a result of trying that drug, it's something inside of me, just like a switch went on, and I simply could not turn it off. And what I mean by that, guys, for the next 25 years, and I'm talking about from the age of 13 to 35, I continuously used drugs. I used drugs on a regular basis, and I did it against my mother's wishes, because my mother found out. She was not happy, obviously. But I started out at 13, and as I started to go through my years, developing and growing, I was messing up my brain. And what I mean by that is, using drugs at such a young age before your brain is actually fully developed potentially can stop the growth of the brain. And really basically that's what happened to me. Now let me quickly just tell you the drugs that I got addicted to. These drugs, they're around today. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of them. You probably know a little bit about them. The first drug is nicotine. And it just so happens that we're going to be talking about that in a moment, nicotine. That was the first drug I got addicted to. That was the first drug that came into my life. It was one of the first drugs. Marijuana. This drug is no question about it. It is highly dangerous for young people. When I say highly dangerous, the potential for this drug to interfere with your adolescent development is so serious. And I try to get this message across to young people, because right now we live in a world where people are promoting the idea that marijuana is not that big a deal. It's a medical drug. It's everybody has different ideas. Well, you are right now listening to a guy who I can tell you comfortably that out of the 5 drugs I got addicted to, marijuana did the most damage. And I'm specifically talking about the damage of stopping me from developing, stopping me from growing. And if you're not sure what that basically means, it means that when I was 13, I tried marijuana. I continuously used marijuana throughout my teenage years up into my 20s. And unbeknownst to me, I had no idea, but when I was actually in my 20s, I was still stuck at 13. If that doesn't make sense to you, think about it like this, right? You have one shot of growing up. You have one shot of developing and coming out of this thing okay. And if the brain does not develop, like, your body is going to grow. You're going to grow tall, you're going to go strong, you're going to look like an adult. But if your brain is stuck in an adolescent stage, the matchup is not going to be good, and that spells trouble. And that was really what happened to me. So when I was in my 20s, I was still pretty much 13, and that arrested development really didn't help me at all. It actually continuously made me got me into more drugs. It allowed me to try more things, and sure enough, here comes more drugs. So nicotine, marijuana, alcohol. I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink alcohol. I haven't had a sip of alcohol in 27 years. I'm happy to say that. I don't miss it. I leave it out of my life. That guy who can't drink alcohol. If I drink alcohol, What, Mr. G, what happens to you? Well, what happens to me is a switch goes on and I don't know how to turn it off. And so I'm better off leaving it alone. Are there some people who can drink alcohol? You better believe it. In fact, most people in our world who choose to drink alcohol, they drink it responsibly. That's a fact. Most people are considered healthy, social drinkers. They drink responsibly. I'm just not that guy. And as I'm speaking right now to you guys, some of you actually may know some people in your life that are responsible drinkers. And on the same token, you may know somebody who shouldn't drink alcohol, because when they drink, they're out of control. They get in trouble. So nicotine, marijuana, alcohol, the last two drugs that I say I was seriously addicted to is cocaine and heroin. Obviously, this is a recording, so you can't ask questions. But normally, if I'm in a classroom or I'm in an assembly presentation, a lot of kids will raise hands and ask tons of questions. But you're just going to get the straight presentation that I'm doing right now. I would love to be able to like hang out with you guys. Hopefully, at some point, we will be able to get together once this thing kind of settles down a little bit. But what I want to do right now is I want to get a little bit more into. Oh, by the way, my last drug, the one I mentioned, heroin, nicotine, marijuana, alcohol, cocaine, and heroin, brought me to rehab. And that was 27 years ago. I went to rehab, and I got into my rehab in 1993. It was August 6, 1993. And at that point, I was confronted with the idea that I have to stop using drugs. And I stopped 4 drugs when I went to rehab, and I'll share them with you. I stopped smoking marijuana. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped doing cocaine, and I stopped doing heroin. And to go through that rehab process was challenging and difficult for me. The one drug that I did not stop, and the one drug that I actually was allowed to continue in rehab, was smoking cigarettes, nicotine. And so I did. I continued to smoke cigarettes. And at that time, I was like, wow, I'm glad I don't have to quit smoking, because I enjoyed smoking. And you might say, well, Mr. G, what's so enjoyable about smoking cigarettes? The satisfaction of the addiction to the brain is really like comforting to the person who's addicted. I mean, that's the best way I can explain it to you. When a person gets addicted to nicotine, the only time they're going to feel comfortable is if they have enough nicotine in their body. So I translated that idea, like every time I took a drag off a cigarette, it was giving me nicotine and it was comforting me, not realizing that I was like, I'm building an addiction here that is going to be a major problem someday if I ever have to try to quit. And that day did come. For me, it came when I got involved with FCD. 25 years ago, I stopped using drugs. I'm sorry, I'm getting my dates here. 27 years ago, I stopped using drugs. 25 years ago, FCD hired me. And that's when so I had 2 years, stay with me now. I had 2 years of not using the 4 drugs, nicotine, I'm sorry, marijuana, alcohol, cocaine, and heroin. I had 2 years of not using those drugs, but I was still smoking cigarettes. And FCD said, Don Cutler said, listen, if you want to work for us, you can't smoke cigarettes. We don't smoke cigarettes here. And I said, no problem. I want the job and I'll quit. And boy, did I find out that was not going to be as easy as I thought. And I can say this to all of you right now, the hardest drug for me to quit, hardest, most difficult, challenging, was nicotine by far. And it's interesting that we're in the year 2020 and nicotine has made such a comeback in our country. And it saddens me because the people who are mainly using this drug right now are young people like yourself, 7th, 8th graders. It starts around that age and then it works its way up, into high school and even college. And I'm not talking about smoking. Smoking cigarettes right now in the United States is at its all-time low. nicotine use is really at one of its all-time highs. And it's not through smoking, it's through vaping. And we're going to get into that right now. But let me just say this before I move on. FCD's prevention approach it's a collaborative process, promoting healthy young people like yourselves, nurturing protections that are already in place. So you guys already have a lot of protections that are in place. Your school has them, your family has them. These are protections, and what we do is we try to like really enforce them by just reminding you of how important it is to protect yourself as you go through your teenage years and not get yourself caught up in drug addiction. We help you understand the importance of reducing risk and bringing that risk down so you don't get chemically dependent. And we try to help you intervene on unhealthy behaviors. If you look up on the screen here, you can see, right, this is a device that came into our country unannounced, uninvited. It actually landed in the United States from China about 11 years ago. So the very first e-cigarette was invented in China roughly 11 years ago. This e-cigarette was designed to help people quit smoking, all right? That was the idea behind that. When it came to the United States, it came in here and people were like, wow, what is this? And quite frankly, there's a lot of people who were trying to quit smoking at that point. Even though smoking has been declining for many years, there's still people who don't want to smoke and they're trying everything to get off cigarettes. Well, this device came in and we had no idea that this thing was going to turn around and become as big as it has over the last, like I say, about 11 years. Roughly about 5 years ago, there's a device that came into this country. Well, it was actually it was discovered into this country. It was actually founded right here in the United States in California, and it's called Juul. And I know you guys have heard of Juul. Juul is not on this slide, but if you look to the left, you can see Juul pods. The actual device is not up there, but I can show you what that looks like in a moment. Most of you probably already do know. But on this slide, there are devices. These are what we call ENDS, electronic nicotine delivery systems. And if you look to the right, you see that it looks like a pipe there and a cigar. Those are actually electronic devices. You don't burn them, you don't smoke them. These are all vaping devices that actually have gotten really big in the United States. It's $1 billion industry. And there was actually 2 graduates out of the University of California who got together and they actually came up with a company called Juul. And the Juul device, if you look up here, you can see this is an illustration of Juul. And if you look, and Fix is up there as well. But if you look at these devices, right, you see that piece that comes off and on right there. That's the pod, and inside that pod are chemicals, and the chemicals that are in there, a lot of them have been like a secret to the public. Like the companies didn't want us to know what was in there as they were selling this product. We do know that there's a chemical in there called nicotine. Everybody understands that these are devices that are highly addictive. If you don't understand it, you need to understand. This isn't something you play with and then you think you're going to, oh, I'm going to be all right. No, if you mess with these devices, your chances are really good at getting addicted. And if you get addicted to nicotine, remember, keep this in mind. I'm a heroin addict. I'm a person who got seriously addicted to drugs. I just told you a few minutes ago, the hardest drug for me to quit, by far, hands down, no question about it, is nicotine. And so for me, I can't emphasize that enough, how serious that is, because the majority of people who are using Juul in this country are teenagers. They're young people and are these devices. So with that being said, what else is in there besides nicotine? We do know that there's chemicals. I want to share this with you because this is really cool for you guys. You can go to a Stanford University out of California, Stanford. has actually came up with a program, and they've partnered with FCD and really have given us a lot of up-to-date, accurate information on really what's going on with Juul and the vaping devices in the United States. Tobacco Prevention Toolkit is the website. So I would really encourage you guys as students to go look at that website and get a lot of good information and find out really what this stuff is all about. They sent us this slide and gave us some information. This is the truth, by the way. If you look up there, you can see there's a lot of chemicals besides nicotine in there. You might say, Mr. G, what are all these chemicals? Listen, honestly, I have no idea. A lot of them I haven't even heard of. They are potentially dangerous. And when I say dangerous, if you look up there and you see the chemicals, some of them are turning yellow. All right. The ones that are yellow happen to be harmful, dangerous, carcinogens. They cause cancer. They cause all kinds of complications with your lungs. And again, the companies don't want you to know this. They would rather not tell you this, but because Tobacco Prevention Toolkit out of Stanford has done a lot of research, they bring it to us so we can bring it to you. And by the way, here's one more. I don't know if any of this stuff looks familiar to any of you guys. Take a glance at it really quick. There's copper up there, arsenic. I mean, who really arsenic? I mean, nickel. There's oh, so much in there. And by the way, guys, this is something that eventually will come back to get you, because this isn't something at first you'd be like, well, I'm all right, I can stop anytime I want to. I said that myself. Eventually it gets to a point where there's no turning back. You are now fully addicted. I want to share this slide with you because myself personally and my colleagues, we were really under the impression that, we thought that, this statement up here is interesting. It says 1 Juul pod is equal to the amount of nicotine found in a pack of cigarettes. And I thought that was a fact. And normally when I'm in a classroom, I'll put this slide up there and I'll give students an opportunity to stand or sit. Most students will actually stand up and they believe that. And the truth is, it's a myth. That's a myth, because with the research, again, that we're doing, we found out there's a lot more nicotine in the Juul pod, that small little pod, than we originally thought. If you look over here, you can see, by the way, you see those cigarettes that just dropped down? That's a pack of cigarettes. I went through 20 cigarettes. That's 20 cigarettes. I went through 20 cigarettes a day for 20 something years. And that was a serious addiction. But if you look at Juul, the Juul pod, that one pod equals 41 cigarettes. That's actually 2 packs of cigarettes in a pod. And then fixed device and Surin are even higher. So they go way up there. And last thing I want to share with you is, guys, think about your brain. Your brain is under construction. You are in a stage right now of your life where you need to leave chemicals out of your brain, just so your brain is free and it can develop in such a way that you can maximize your potential and get to your adult years so everything grows in harmony. Look, as I'm speaking right now, your brain is working. The frontal lobe of your brain is and your brain is retaining all this information. Listen, if you use chemicals, it blocks things out so you can't develop and grow. You don't want that to happen. All right, let me come out of this for a moment, and I hope that this was clear to you. And I want to share with you and say, listen, FCD has done a lot of work over the years. They have really put in the research. We are here as a resource, not just for you guys, for your schools. We are global. We're all over the place. If you want more information, get in touch with us. You can contact us through fcd.org. There's people in the office that are always online. They're always listening. They're here to answer your questions or anything. My strong suggestion to all of you is navigate your teenage years without using chemicals. I don't care how cool it looks or how many of your friends are doing it. Do yourself a favor and stay drug-free. Stay away from chemicals. Allow yourself to grow up and have a wonderful life. With that, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank you, and I say have a safe year. Just take care of yourselves. Thank you.